Well, howdy, y'all. I am from Texas, and I know we make fun of Americans because we only speak one language, but I speak two, Texan, and I'm going to do this in Midwestern so the translators can understand. And I have important things to talk about, robots and AI and a sledgehammer. I don't know if you guys, I don't know how bad it is here yet, but in the United States, I keep hearing all the time that robots are coming for our jobs. Over and over. They're going to take all your jobs, 80% of them are gone. In 6 years, no one's driving cars. They're taking everything. AI, sales is coming for it. The media swears, oh my God, we shut down a chatbot because Skynet was coming. I hear it all the time, and I absolutely refuse to accept it. So instead of robots, I'm going to pull a switch on you, and I want to talk about people. I'm going to talk about human beings. It starts with the story of John Henry. Does anybody know the story of John Henry? Anyone? It's new to you. Fantastic. It's an old American story about a man. John Henry was a steel-driving man. He had a sledgehammer, and he laid the railroads, driving in spikes. Just driving in. They got to the point of a mountain. They had to cut through a mountain. The dynamite and the sledgehammer, and a man shows up with a steam machine and says, you guys are all fired. The steam machine's taken over, and he's going to bust through this mountain. Well, they decided to have a big competition, John Henry versus the steam machine. They go at it, the steam machine's pouring through the mountain, is ahead, but then it breaks down. John Henry just keeps beating through, breaks through the other side, and wins. Everybody's cheering, everyone's excited. Then his heart gives out, and he dies. That's the story. There's more to it, right? It's the triumph of the human will over the machines. That's the point of the story, right? There's more to it, and we'll get to it, but I want you to remember this because in a large extent, stories like this is how we think about robots. It's how we end up thinking about AI. So I've been in Brasov for 4 or 5 days, lovely time. I've been talking to people whose language is not primarily English, so I've been really annoying. What was the word you said? What they didn't know was that I do this to people all the time. It's not a great habit, but I said, what was the word you said? Why did you say that word? I really want to know exactly what that person said, because many words have different meanings. It's not just translation. However, people don't always say what they mean, but they always mean what they say. And as human beings, we are fantastic translators. We come up with things and we're like, what is that person saying? I'm not quite sure. Have you ever looked at a transcript on a television? They sound like idiots on the transcript, but in real life, you're like, oh, I know what the guy said. We're really, really good at that. We're really good at certain things, and as humans, we have to begin to understand what those things are. We are good at understanding other human beings. The problem we have with words is sometimes we misuse them. So if you're hearing that AI does this and AI does that, what is your conception of AI? There's 4 basic categories. The first one is the weird-looking blue guy up there on the left. Point a laser at him, but that's too high-tech for me. Ray Kurzweil, the singularity. Who's aware of the singularity? So we saw earlier, yesterday, they talked about Moore's Law. Computers are getting faster and faster. They're getting smarter and smarter. They're going to get to intelligence. They're going to get into superintelligence. They're going to take over. We're going to upload our brains into the cloud and become cyber gods. People actually believe this. Many of them who lead the biggest companies in the world believe this is a possibility, and they say, I just want to live long enough to live forever. How does that movie playing in your head impact your decisions? The corollary to that is that AI gets so smart, it realizes how ridiculous we are, decides not to keep us around, and then we get the Terminator and wipes out humanity. Dismisses all of us because we're weak. It's a possibility. Up on the right here, you have a little cherubic face. It's a cute kid, right? That's a little baby AI. It grew. When you walk in the room, it looks at you and tries to talk to you. You can watch it learning to read. A little spooky. But the idea of this is we have some companion, some fun little, just like another entity, another consciousness that's just like a new species that's working with us. And the last one, in the middle there, is an actual robot that actually does certain kinds of jobs like flipping burgers or talking to us or sourcing next to us. That is a real robot. His name is Milo. I work downtown. I'm 44 years old, but I work with a bunch of 26-year-olds. So to be cool, I have to wear T-shirts and do my hair with my hands instead of a comb like a grown person. But it's good. I get to wear ironic T-shirts. We'll talk about Milo later on, but I actually do play with robots for a living. So the problem that we have when we have those categories in our head is that it determines our vision. This is what AI is. I'm going to automate everything, and we'll just sprinkle a little AI on it. I hear that all the time, which cracks me up, because I started as a joke, and now people are repeating it. Sprinkle a little AI on it. The problem is that's AI is not what we do. There's a whole category of words: semantic analysis, machine learning, deep learning, supervised learning, cognitive tools. They're not all the same thing, but we assume they're the same thing. So what happens is we've got to understand the spectrum that goes from automation to AI. It starts like this. It's really easy: manual, assisted, semi-automated. So anybody built a fence? Finally, one man in Brashaw. And he's from Canada, of course, of course. So the manual would be, if you're big, you have to dig the hole first. So you get down with your hands and you dig a hole, and you rip a tree down and you stick it in. Not fun. So the assisted would be taking a shovel, and then an axe, cutting down the tree. A little easier than with your bare hands, but that's assisted. Right? Semi-automated would be you have a pole stomper, and you just literally go up and you go like this, and it pulls it out. Still a little work, but much, much easier than getting your buddies together and digging holes with your hands. Autonomous would be if you had a machine, like a tractor, that you just push a button and you drive along and it puts the fence up for you. And then fully autonomous would be when your buddy Marius, the robot, you say, go build a fence for me, and he does that. I've run out of stage, so if I were to pick out where that be, it might be the city center. It's a lot further off than we think. It might be closer. It could be closer. But there's a big difference between where we are here and where we end up being with AI. But in your head, you want to jump ahead. You want to say, I'm just going to tell the robot to do everything. How does that impact your decisions? How does it impact what your plans are? Everyone's saying self-driving cars are coming. Kids don't need to buy or don't learn to get driver's licenses anymore. It's a big thing in the United States. Have a driver's license. I hope they get driver's licenses because it's not coming anytime soon. If you never learn to drive early, it's like it becomes much harder later on. So the decisions we make begin to impact us. So in terms of hiring, because I know we're going to talk about hiring, I swear we'll get to it. Manual would be face-to-face interview. How are you, Fabrizio? I know, because from earlier. There's going to be a lot of callbacks, so if you missed any of the conference, you're going to miss a lot of the inside jokes. So manual is just face-to-face interview. If you have a script to talk to the person, that's actually assisted. It's not very far. Semi-autonomous, or semi-automated would be they're logging onto the website, they're taking assessments, and they send you information so you can decide to call them. You're making all the decisions, you're just automating some of your stuff. Well, that is semi-automated. Fully automated would be they go to the website, the decision's made for you, and it's just telling you who you're supposed to hire. And autonomous, once again, is going to be in the city center. None of us have jobs at that point, because if a robot's good enough to hire everybody, it's probably good enough to do all of those jobs. So the problem is when someone says, all of your jobs are going away, people begin to believe this. It could be a lot further off than we see. And I think I can prove it to you. This is the Hollywood myth. Anyone seen any of these movies? I'm such a dumb American, I couldn't imagine if someone had or hadn't. I'm hope they recognize them. Avatar, you've got Hey Johnny, Blade Runner. When you think of robots, you think of these guys, don't you? You think of a robot talking to you, maybe doing something brave and noble. You watch people do this, you're like, this is what AI is, because we're visual creatures. So when you explain automation, you point to a thing on the screen, people go, I get that, I get that. When you start walking across, it makes it a little easier because we think in terms of pictures. That's what an interview is. When you're talking to someone and you can imagine them working next to you, you hire them. If you imagine having to fire them or yell at them, you decide not to. You don't think in words, you tend to think in pictures, which is why we always say, tell a story. Tell a story, that's how you get hired, right? So you have to understand what humans do well. We're really good at understanding each other, we're good at telling stories, but some of our limitations are, once we hear something or think about it like this is what we think AI becomes. This amazing buddy that hangs out with us. And it begins to affect our decisions. Hollywood is a myth, they're not real. But we can't not function like this, and we're all due for it. I want to show you cutting-edge technology. All right, I want to show you cutting-edge technology, because it's not Hollywood. I want to show you the absolute best we have in robotics right now. This is Pepper, See if I make sure I do this correctly. Just to show a little bit of it.
I'm a humanoid powered by IBM Watson. I am honored and delighted to be here at the Oxford Union tonight. I am here with my IBM colleague, David Cole, to talk about IBM.
I'm going to cut him off a little bit because he'll have time to speak in the future, and this is my time.
Introduction. And good evening, everyone. Noah, could I start off by asking you a few questions?
Sure thing. Fire away.
Firstly, Noah, how tall are you?
I'm not very tall at all, compared to you giants.
What color are your eyes?
My eyes are blue when I am listening to you, magenta when I am thinking, green when I am talking, and white when I am bored.
So that's a real conversation. It's using IBM Watson's conversation service. He's talking to that thing, and that thing is talking back to him. It's not a he, it's not a she, it's an it talking back to him, right? Is it impressive? It's kind of cool that we can do that, right? It's fake. It's not fake. Okay, it's not fair to say fake. It is staged, though, and I can prove it. I can prove that it's staged. Remember, this is Pepper. This is IBM's Pepper. July of last year at Oxford, the best we can do. It's impressive as all get out, but it's staged because you know what they have behind that computer? That's just a speaker, basically, with some engineering. Although, do you know how hard it is to make one of those things move? Just moving your arm while it's talking, which makes you feel better, that was $20 million. It might have been as much as $50 million. It may take a little while to get robots taking over your jobs. R2-D2's not sourcing with you anytime soon, right? I mean, if we get $50 million, I don't know what I'd be doing with it. But we know that it's staged, and when I say staged, I really want to be clear about I'm not making fun of these guys because they're amazing, but you notice the lag? You talk to him and there's a lag. It's because the human voice is a sound wave, and when it hits the speakers of the robot, it is converted into a wave file, which is then compressed and then forwarded to a computer, and that takes time, and that lags too fast. And they're cheating because they have a Cray supercomputer behind that wall, and it's Oxford, so they don't pay for any of it. That's a Cray supercomputer attacks Noah, but it's Pepper the robot. That's how we know that it's staged, right? But it's not even that impressive. Let me show what happens when you don't have a Cray supercomputer, and you're just a normal, regular human being with high-speed internet. This is Milo. You guys remember him before? Milo is a pretty amazing little robot. This is my friend Mark Hopkins. Mark plays with cognitive tools. So you remember that picture of me in the t-shirt with the mussy hair? I'm downstairs from Robokind Robots, which is the guy does it, Richard Margolin. Came from Hanson Robotics. He's one of the top robotics experts in the world. And Milo is his creation, and we've been playing with it. In this case, Mark does exactly what they did at Oxford. So check this out. This is cutting edge.
Hello there, Milo.
Hello. I'm Milo. I'm an advanced social robot. Would you like to learn more about me?
Yes, I would love to learn more about you, Milo.
I can do all sorts of things. Do you want...
It goes on for a while. I need an honest person. You guys don't count. I need someone that I don't know. Somebody stand up and give me a little favor here. One person, stand up. Anyone, somebody, stand up. You, sir. You, sir. I don't know you, right? Yes, in the back. I have a question for you. Please be very honest. Is that impressive to you? I thought the same thing. Here I'm working with Mark, and we're talking about all the stuff we're going to do, and we're going to set up these meetings and talk to people. We're going to put them in a highly autonomous car, and we're going to write it so that he's talking to you. But I can't show that to anybody. That is cutting edge. That is more cutting edge than you guys realize. Mark broke the browser to audio configuration that IBM couldn't do when they were using Milo for a demonstration. This is impressive, and I know it's impressive because Richard came to me and said, not bad. It's actually pretty good. Richard doesn't say stuff like that. This is cutting edge. You know how hard it is to get a browser, to speak to a browser and have it understand you? Look at that lag, though. Look at the child's voice coming out of the speaker. So even though this is cutting edge, and by the way, this robot is no offense to anyone in this room, this robot has done more for people than anyone in this room ever will. This is an incredible robot. It has about 30% of human emotions when it begins to move. It's used for autistic kids. So Richard quit Hanson Robotics and went and created Robokind robots, and this works with autistic children. Because autistic children, too much is coming in, and they shut down. We don't know how to help them when we're doing that, so it's 14 years of babysitting in the schools, an enormous cost as autism is on the rise around the world. This robot fixes them, gives their families hope. It is insane. When you see the video of a woman talking about how her kid gets invited to a birthday party, you just break down crying because she has her life back. Your kid goes to a party, breaks down, everybody says, I can't invite him anymore. And then 7 years later, he starts getting birthday invitations. That is life-changing. And it doesn't just help them self-manage, it teaches them. This little robot is a miracle, an absolute miracle. And we're not impressed when we see it because in our heads, we're thinking of Hollywood. Like, it's just not cool enough, you know? I do the same thing. I still do. You can't help yourself. You're constantly thinking ahead. But when we start saying AI, 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 the algorithms have done this, the filters have done this, the people have done this, you're going to lose your job, it's because we're thinking about Hollywood. And we have to avoid doing that. It's really, really dangerous. Okay, nice monologue, Jim. What does that have to do with anything? I'm going to give you an answer, but not yet. It's school, so we have to learn this because it doesn't help if we don't understand something important. Gall's law. So I can't remember the whole thing. I should just read it out. A complex system that works is invariably found to have evolved from a simple system that worked. The inverse of that is a complex system can't have whatever because it has to be simple. By the way, I just did that human thing. Like you all kind of figured out where it was going. You didn't need to hear the end of it. Humans are really good at that. Gall's law basically says you cannot have a complex system. You can't just plop something into place and have it work. None of it works like that. Very important to grasp, because when you talk about automation and automating your jobs, you do a lot of things. If I just put a robot in your place, and by the way, it didn't have to be a robot, it could just be a piece of software, I can't replace everything a human does. When you do that, bad things begin to happen, based on Gall's law, and we'll talk through some of those. It's important to grasp this. Life is about iterative change, making small differences, testing what happens, and seeing if it's good or if it's bad. You cannot have large systems that are just plopped onto something. So far, we haven't found something that doesn't follow this. Maybe it will happen, but it's not a theory, right? Counts as a law. I love this, actually. This is pretty funny. Say this with me for a second. Recruiters are lazy. Come on. Recruiters are lazy. I'm going to turn this off and we're going to do it together. Recruiters are lazy because they are busy. You realize this makes no sense. I cannot write a chat program that understands what this means. Is there anybody that doesn't understand what this means? I hope not, because my 9-year-old gets it. She's bright, but she's only 9, and she doesn't recruit. We're so busy, we don't have time to do something else than to learn it. It's not really that we're lazy, it's just we're busy doing stuff. But you can say that, AI doesn't understand it, but a human gets it instantly. And that's important because that is one of our strengths is in translation. We're weird. Human beings are weird. And software is hysterical because the weirdest human beings, which are engineers and Python developers, they're trying to get all the weirdness out of the system. That's what software does. It automates and spreads everything out. It removes human risk and the chance of human error. And why are the people who are the weirdest trying to do that for us? How are they running the conversations? Do they understand that there's a process? When they replace something, what happens? Catastrophic failure. It's not even a question. We know exactly what happens. Yesterday, Ron was telling us about people, and you put a process around them, right? And then we moved to David and Anita, who talked about their process that they put together over a series of years that works to find fantastic hiring leaders. And then somebody asked, what's the most important part of that step? Such a recruiter thing to ask. These are great, this is great. What's the one thing I need so I can get back to doing all the work that I'm doing? We're like that. We always want to jump ahead, which we now know we're not supposed to do, right? So the answer is the first thing is the most important, and then the next one, and then the next one. That's how you fix things, small, small pieces. But you have to understand the process first. It's not just replacing everything. You actually have to know every single thing that you're doing. So last year, I was working with a big search engine, and I got together with them. I was going to help the recruiters learn about recruiting. And I said to myself, I play the tuba too. Is it going out? Oh, there we go. So I said to myself, I'm going to sit down and figure out recruiting. I came up, it's too big to fit on the screen. I feel like I have a net cast on when I turn. It's bizarre. This is some of the skills that you need. I have 164 modules on the skills that you need to be trained to do a recruiter. I don't think I got them all. 164. That's quite a bit, right? Well, let's drill down. Maybe I just added things that weren't important. Let's just drill down to one and see what happens. Interview expertise, just at one at the top. Length of time. So when I say length of time, what I mean is how long do you need to talk to a candidate to realize if they're good or not? How long do you have to meet them in person before you can make the kinds of decisions that they're going to come work for you? 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour? Isn't that normal, kind of standard? So the exact same thing we should do for every other thing we've ever done in life. It's just convenient because nobody wants to divide 32 minutes into 80 seconds. I like the way they jump, though. It's very human. The computers would have just sat there. It is hard to do this kind of stuff. So when I say length of time, what I mean is I can figure everything out. I can sit down and we don't know how long it takes. We can kind of make it up. There's no studies about this. Yep. And then, of course, you get hiring managers who have this instinct, this gut. That guy, Rick from Texas, you got to listen here. I know you boys from the city don't get it, but out here in the country, just pull it off. Is it off? Out here in the country, I size a man up when I look at him. It takes me 7 seconds to know whether or not he's a man I'll work with. It's pretty much, I mean, without the accent, that's what your hiring managers say. I know instantly when I glance at a resume that you sent over, right? What if he's right? What if Rick the Cowboy's right? If he's right, all of us can do it in 7 seconds. And what if you need another 59 minutes and 53 seconds to convince the candidate to come work with you? Or what if you need an hour and then 2 hours and then 4 hours to invest that time in an interview so when the person is hired, they want to take the job, and because you spent so long talking to them and don't want to do it again, you continue to invest in them because now they're employed and you want them to succeed. But if you just took 7 seconds, you don't care because it only takes 7 seconds. We have no clue the answers to this, by the way. We don't know what they are. This is one tiny little portion of a large process, and we haven't begun to think about this kind of stuff. How are we going to automate it? I don't know. I'm pretty sure a software engineer doesn't know how to do it. I know they haven't thought about it. They use the wrong words. These are recruiters today. We're all busy. It's not just leaders who don't have the time to reflect. We are busy. We are constantly busy. You send out 100 messages and 400 come back. We just don't have time. And then we have to send it back and forth. You're just constantly busy. You don't have time to think. The problem is if you're the kind of person who schedules everything and works this hard, let's say you have a 1 o'clock meeting and you have a 2 o'clock meeting. Schedule them back to back. You walk into that 2 o'clock meeting, you might as well do 4 shots of Tweeka. Might as well not go to sleep the night before. And if you want to talk to somebody like that, I can refer you to Tuesday morning after Monday night. Although, in all fairness, you shouldn't listen to gossip. You should be the subject of gossip. That's my best impression. It's a cognitive problem. You really are, you're dumb. You're dumb. You can't switch. There's no such thing as a multitasker. You are having cognitive failure. And what happens when you have cognitive failure is you kind of revert back to the standard. You say, this is what I'm doing. I'm just going to do what I always did. If you're ever in jail the morning after something's gone wrong, try to get a morning trial, because by the end of the trial, the judge doesn't have any sympathy. They're just running through and doing it. Because this is how humans are. It's one of our flaws. Learning this stuff, the neuroscience we were talking about, it's important. You think that we're different than judges? You've been in meetings. How much time is wasted before someone pays attention? What happens is you're so busy, you don't have time to talk to someone. And what do you do about that? How do you fix that? Automation will solve some of these problems. If you have something you hate doing, you automate it. But what you can't do is then get rid of that thing that you were doing. Look, I'm glad that I don't have to swim across the ocean and walk to Romania to be at the conference. Automation is fantastic, right? I flew and I drove, it was nice. Didn't get eaten by sharks. All positives. Can you imagine the body I would have if I could swim the Atlantic and walk to Romania? So there's a trade-off, right? Automation means comfort. It is good things and bad things. If I spend the entire time watching Netflix, eating bad food, not talking to anyone, if I sit up in my hotel room and play on the internet or answer emails, all that time that I saved by not swimming the ocean, I have lost. I didn't put it into anything valuable. I put it into busy work, the exact same stuff I was trying to get rid of in the first place. So the problem we have is we are busy, and because of that, we are dumb. We don't have to be. We are literally making ourselves easy to replace. That is dangerous. Every skill that was up there, if I can train it in somebody, I absolutely can take it away as well. So what can you automate right now? Our good friend Joseph yesterday came out and he gave a whirlwind course on sourcing. I'm an expert sourcer. I can compete with the best in the world. And I'm telling you, this man can absolutely compete with the best in the world, without a doubt. It took me like 7 seconds of listening to him without the accent. It's Czech accent, so I didn't. But I mean, seriously, the way he talks, the way he describes stuff, I absolutely recognize it's like he's good enough to be with the best in the world. How did he end his presentation? Talking about video calls. Here's a guy who, on the Elite, can find anybody that needs to be found, and he's already thinking ahead to, you know what? How do I get them to call me back? How do I make sure that they're talking to me as a human being? He's not saying, I'm done with sourcing, I'm done with recruiting, I'm going to go into video for the rest of my life. Because that's foolish, because it's still useful, it makes money, people need it, but he's looking and testing a little bit. So he didn't replace everything, he's just testing a little bit of it. Best sourcer in the world, thinking ahead of the future. Ryan came up and talked about branding and marketing, which we see all around us as we're trying to sell stuff from sponsors. We sell stuff, that's what branding and marketing does. And now we're going to learn to sell people. But she also was emotional on stage and showed what it was like just to be human. And people appreciated that. That is the future. This stuff isn't theory that the speakers have gone through. We're practicing it in our own lives. So it's not, you just have to do this and here's a good idea. We're taking little steps and you guys have to learn to do that exact same thing. So what can you automate? Anything that you don't like. Sourcing is, I can't believe this is happening. I played with Pocket Recruiter. We'll make these slides available. Take a shot of this one though. These 4 are incredible. They're better than humans. I did Pocket Recruiter, I can't beat it. I've trained 9,000 recruiters around the world, and it's just better and faster than I am, or at least faster. Brilliant was in SourceCon in Austin, Texas, and it went up against humans, and it came in 3rd in quality. It did it in 3.2 seconds. The best one, Randy Bailey, did it in 24 hours. I wouldn't want to compete with it this fall. They're getting so good at pulling names. They're not perfect. They can't find things that don't exist. They don't think like we do. But sourcing is something, if you're searching information online, if you need benefits, or if you're looking for something, very easily, today, we can probably automate that out. So if that's your job, well, bad news for you, right? That shouldn't be your job, though. There's many other things that you can do. Anything that's easy to do, that you're cognitively busy, you can't mess with, you shouldn't spend an hour writing an email. But it's better to do that than spend an hour playing and searching a job board. You have to figure out what you can get rid of and then replace it with what we call people skills. The other 2 are pretty cool as well. We also have assistants, Wade and Wendy. So this is kind of a smaller thing. Wendy is for the recruiters. It's to remind you this is coming up. Here's some extra information. The hiring manager sent this in their email. Don't forget to mention it to them. It's just like a little virtual assistant applied to recruiting. Wade is for candidates to help them think about the job, which is a big thing I focus on. I don't want you applying to my job until you've thought about it. The question I love to ask that humans can't ask, but I bet you that little robot could, is, you looked at your budget in the last month? Okay, let's talk about what compensation you need to match that budget. If you haven't thought about it, I don't want to talk about salary, we're just making numbers up. Can you imagine asking somebody, let's pull out your checkbook and let's go through what kind of money you spend to see. That's really what you have to ask. They have to think through that before they make the decision to move, right? That's a pretty important thing. We can't really ask those questions. Chatbots will help them do that, which means they'll be better candidates, and they'll stop hitting apply, 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 and giving us an enormous number of resumes that we're never going to get through. So the chats are pretty cool, but sometimes there's a problem with these. There's a problem with automation, and I'll get to that in just a second. So chatbots, if you want to look, this is bot list, and this is an actual chat written in IBM's conversation service. It's funny, I keep talking to this thing instead of this one. Chatbots, you're using them right now and don't know it. In fact, if you've had a good experience online, chances are it was a chatbot. If you had a really bad experience online, it was probably a human, and if you got mad, it was a chatbot. They're all over. You wouldn't believe the things that they're doing out there. This is 10,000 of them. There's 20,000 Facebook Messenger bots that begin to pop up everywhere. These are the weird notifications, and it pops up and says hello, and you don't know if it's a person or if it's a robot. The robots are so fast, you actually like them better if you're just getting information. If you have a problem, you don't want to talk to the bot. So the chatbots are important, and they're useful, because what if you can figure out what questions to ask? What if you can actually deliver information to somebody with a chatbot that doesn't get mad and nobody has daddy issues with it? It's a first-level defense that you'll start using in your recruiting and hiring, not to screen and assess and filter, but instead to remind them, hey, let's all take a second, pay attention, focus on what we're doing, and when we talk as humans, we're going to make that time valuable. The problem with chatbots, because remember, software flattens everything, right? The problem with it is because it removes things that you might need to know. It's the same problem we have with sourcing. This is the rogue recruiter. He's been doing this a long time. He's 146 years old, ladies and gentlemen, so give him a hand for this. It's Canadian. It's Canadian dollars. Canadian dollars, I bet. I always get that mixed up. Sorry. He wouldn't be any good if his first part of the career he was given a list of perfect candidates, knew nothing about them, and just called through. One of the beauties of sourcing is you're getting information that you use to figure out what to say, what the right way to go, how much the salary is. I feel like I'm cheating sometimes when I stop a sentence because I know you guys know it and I mentioned it, but I'm not trying to do that. I just forget some words. Does everybody get that from the beginning? That's great. This is positive. You know what else? You know what humans do really well? We work to failure, and then we get past it. We fix weird problems. That is another superpower. We fix problems. Robots do what they're told, and only what they're told. And because humans break things, the only person that can fix problems are humans, right? The problem with this, too, is this makes us lazy in a different way. So there's a scheduling app. Anyone use Amy.ai? It's kind of cool. If I want to meet with you, I send you an email, and I CC Amy.ai, and she talks to you. You schedule a time. It pops up on my calendar. I don't have to talk. I don't have these 4 emails back and forth going, do you want to do Tuesday at 2, or do you want to do Wednesday at 1? Should we get lunch? She covers it all and does it so well that you say, gosh, your virtual assistant, Amy, is amazing. However, I can't use her. Whatever it is. When I tried using it as a recruiter, the problem is that other person still has those 4 email interactions, and they're investing time in something, right? I wasn't. I didn't know anything about it. So when I got on the phone, I didn't know much about this person. I didn't know if it was important to them. They feel it's important, and I don't, and they knew it, and they told me that. It was like I was watching TV when I should have been talking to them. I was cognitively busy and wasn't prepped, and I didn't know how to prep for it, because I removed myself from the things that were important, which were, what are we going to sit down and talk about? Are these questions? Sometimes automation takes away the very learning that you need to be useful. That's the biggest problem with these automated sourcing tools. You can't talk to somebody. If we all get the same list, you know nothing about it, you don't know what it was done, you haven't trained the next generation of recruiters, you're in trouble very fast. And what do you get with that? Total system failure. There's a reason I brought Gall's Love. It's because you can't get away from it. It always works, right? So chatbots are the issue, Amy's the issue, so what are we talking about? Words, how do we fix that? What are we trying to automate? This is a chatbot. I tried to apply for a job. Thought it was a good idea. But I don't live in South Africa. But I clicked it anyway, and it said to me, hey, you want to be, give me your phone number. The problem is, I like to be sweet-talked a little bit before I give someone my phone number. I wasn't ready to hand over all the details and show my goodies. I didn't want to talk to them, so I said, you know, hey, I don't want to give it over yet. He says, well, where are you? I think you're in the Virgin Islands. Sir, that is not a funny pun, and I don't want you laughing at it. There's a reason I didn't say that. Anyway, it needs a little work, right? Because we don't think through what really needs to be said. Automation isn't perfect. There is a staffing firm in Dallas that has used a chatbot to place somebody in Mexico City. It is possible. They're being very careful with it because does that person stay, or what they're looking for, what problems occur, small iterative changes. The good news this means is no one's losing their job tomorrow. The bad news is if you are no better than this bot, has anyone ever worked with a recruiter that is this bad? Right? How many people think that we're all like this? It's pretty terrifying. Ali just did a group study when they said that they asked if it was okay to use chatbots for recruiting. And like 40% of the public, 40 said yes, and 40 said, like 60% total, but 40% said absolutely. They would rather talk to a bot than talk to us because we're so busy gathering way too much data that we're no better than they are. Automation doesn't replace human beings, it replaces dumb zombies. When we're making ourselves zombies, if we're not taking advantage of automation correctly, what are we doing? So how do you fix that, right? How do you fix that? You be a recruiter. This is, it's not AI proof. You see what we did right away? It's not AI proof because we're not doing AI. How do you automated proof, automated, there's a verb there, I don't know which one it is, but how do you make your recruiters not be the victims of automation? What do humans do good? We've talked about some of those. They translate. They're weird. They appreciate weirdness. They fix weirdness. They're capable of being persuasive when they're being empathetic. All human things. We are finely tuned to sense danger, which is a fantastic thing to have when you're recruiting. These are all things that humans, they're not skills really, they're traits that are in place. So how do you train something like this? I'm not as weird as a Python developer, but I'm a little weird. I like to submit my resume to jobs I'm not qualified for. I rewrite it, I make it not enough to get hired, but like make them think for a second and go, no, this is just dumb, this guy's not qualified. I've even gone to interviews for doing this because I want to feel what it's like to be rejected. And it's weird when it happens. So I don't even know the company's name. I don't remember what I was applying for. I went online, I put a bunch of stuff, I wrote a cover letter, like I was as earnest as I could be, like I was really pretending I needed this job. 2 months later, I get an automated email rejecting me, and it hurt. I don't remember the company name. I wasn't gonna take it. I was just playing around, and it still hurt. And that's good, because when I talk to a candidate who's going through the same thing, I understand how they're feeling. And we get so busy, we don't have the time for this. Doesn't mean you should go out and submit resumes, but you should try being interviewed. You should feel it. Man, it's weird. If you're recruiters, you are probably expert interviewers. I have terrible news for you. You are probably terrible at being interviewed. I know I am, because I don't do it. How could I be good at it? But if you train and practice those kinds of things, all of a sudden you're training the things that make a difference to candidates over time, instead of acting like a dumb computer. Let humans do human things and let computers do computer things. So, you ask questions like this. What makes a good interview? And then you have to be annoying. Why do you say that? If you look at your process and you build something like I did, you should hate each other because you keep questioning why are you saying that? Your System 1 and System 2 thinking from Daniel Kahneman, if someone gives you a quick answer off the top of their head, it's worthless because they're not thinking about it. And because we don't think about it, we don't know what the process is. You have to automate one small thing thoroughly and completely. To do that, you have to ask tough questions. What elicits human emotion? How do I train that? What do we do well? You have to ask these questions because my sourcing stuff can beat you tomorrow. It's not a positive place to be, but it's boring anyway. It's just cool because other people can't do it, right? And lucrative because other people can't do it. Well, why don't you do things that other people can't do? Learn to be human. I hate when people say stuff like that at conferences because, like, what does that mean, learn to be human? Well, these are traits, not skills. Hey, we're at GPI. It's an assessment conference. Traits are something that you can't necessarily train. They're strengths that you build up, that you work on. Things like how you feel. Are you proud to be a recruiter? Do you talk about your career plans? Do you have grit? Are you afraid to make phone calls? All things you can build up in your people. Every skill that I had in those 164, in a short period of time, I can automate away. This can't be automated away. That's down in the city center. It's so far away. So the traits of who you are as a recruiter begin to matter. So how do you train someone to be human? We don't even ask these questions anymore. Who's on their phone right now? Fess up and lift your hand up if you're on your phone right now. No, you set it down, but that's not a bad thing. You want to know what a killer app's going to be in the next 10 years? Not being addicted to your phone. If you're staring down like this, you're probably a terrible interviewer. It takes time. If you're not practicing your human skills, there's all kinds of games that you can play from the neuroscience aspect of it, but if you're not practicing your human skills, the computers can beat you. So we've got this weird thing. We have to practice our processes, right? But at the same time, while we're practicing our processes, we also have to take the time we're saving and practice our human skills. Because what happens if we don't? I wanted a book too. I didn't write this one. You should read Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow, because it's cool. And then you should read Nassim Taleb. So he talks about fragility and robustness and anti-fragility. The thing I want us to pull from this is a very basic one. Automation makes you soft. Soft is a dangerous place to be. Life is about struggle. Not pain, but struggle. There is a difference. You get better when you try things, right? So when something comes along, if you're not practicing, if you're falling back to the standard because you're too cognitively busy to lift your head up and look for something else, that's when you get replaced. The book talks about those kind of things, but in general, you should be looking at it. If your people aren't happy at work, it's because they're doing stupid things they know that don't matter. You know what's fun is talking to people, having a real meal and sitting down and talking to them, practicing and training. We don't train on interviewing. We don't train on questions. We have all these fun little games. You can say, let me ask a question. Pick someone real quick. I don't want to run out of time, but you, sir, are you a recruiter? Do you speak English? Who speaks English? You don't count. You speak English. Are you a recruiter? It was. Okay, so who recruits right now? Do you recruit right now? That's all I need. Somebody who speaks English, is a recruiter, does right now, and is relatively close to the stage, who isn't Canadian. Got anybody? Okay, we'll play with you, David. Okay. Who were you hanging out with this week?
You and Rayanne and Joseph.
Went out for a good time, hung out with people.
Yep.
Fantastic time, right?
Yeah.
Can you think of anybody who's looking for a job right now?
You mean in the group that I talked to?
You're just ruining this for me. Problem is he already knows all these games that we play. You go to a recruiter and you say, hey, do you know anybody who's looking for a job? And they go, yeah, my brother's doing some hanging some drywall. Right? They talk to people all day, but they weren't thinking about it. So you can trick people into saying things, and you have to learn when that's being done to you by candidates, when they lie to you and they convince you. And one of the things I learned in an interview is if a manager says a word 4 times, they don't know what it means. It's fascinating. Don't say it to them, just to the side and say, so how well do you know A/B testing? They have no clue. They're repeating because they read it off an RFP of some kind. If you're a good recruiter, you should be able to pick up on that. You should be training on that because computers don't do that well. Computers don't pick up lies well. They're getting there, but they're not there yet. You know, when you're looking at your process, I want you to do this. I want you to think about the word should for a second. I hate the word should. It's my least favorite word. It's with, it goes with the words, what are the 2 words? I forgot them now. There's a thing buzzed. The words, it's not fair and but. So Tony Robbins always jokes around that if he ever hears a but, he's pretty sure you got a big one. Like, that's his joke on stage. My grandmother's a bit more genteel. She's from the South. Jim, if somebody says something's not fair, it's usually because it's not fair to them. I think that way when I hear should. When you say should, I think you haven't done much thinking about that. And it's not fair, you got a big butt. I really worked on that joke. But it was early in the thing, I forgot about it. We'll get the timing down next time. We'll get the timing down. So we're finished. I want to show you this last slide here, because we've got to talk about John Henry for just a second. We should get back to John Henry for a second. You choose your story. You can choose a Hollywood one if you want. It does impact what you're doing. What you're thinking and how you approach the world depends on the future that you see. So you can pick a Hollywood story if you want, or you can pick an older story. I like this one. And I don't like it just because the human triumphs. I don't like it because the guy dies at the end, saving everybody. That's another Hollywood story. It's not a good one. But here's the thing you got to remember about John Henry. It's deeper than that. The men that were working with it, they were hard men, but they were weak men. I didn't tell you this part of it. When this guy with the steam engine showed up for the mountain, they got mad because they were losing their livelihoods, and they decided to get together and kill the guy. And John Henry stands up and says, "Whoa, brothers, I've got a better way." What is it about him? You guys don't know the story, but it moves you in different ways. You begin to think, okay, is it because he's dying? If you know that he's dying, does it change the nobility of what he did? What is it about John Henry that should matter to you? So just do this for a second. Just try to imagine what it's like to be under a mountain, hammering away at the darkness, chips flying around, right? Dust in your lungs, your sweat's down your back, and you just stood up in front of all these people and said, "I'm going to save your jobs." The machine next to you, it's got 2 hammers, but it's not carrying what you're carrying. You're down there alone, and you sit there for a second. If you could just smell it, you feel for... One question comes up. If John Henry knew he was going to die, would he have picked up his hammers that day? The story's a little harder now, right? Because that's the sweet part of it. You know, there are people who will say that he deserved it. He was obsolete. He should have retrained himself. And that's weakness too. That's the dismissal we're afraid of with AI, that human beings don't matter. What we're saying is, I can't help you and I can't take the time to care about you. That is a rough place to be. John Henry stood up. And that's the secret of the story. When the time came, he was ready to compete. It's not about beating those machines. It's when the time comes, have you done what you need to do? To stand up in front of everybody and say, "Brothers and sisters, I have a better way." Prepare yourself. It's coming. Teach your people to lift their eyes up just a little bit. Just a little. And together we'll get through this mountain.